Hello, and thank you for joining the Thomas Expert Series. We're going to get started in just a minute. In the meantime, I would like everyone to please mute their microphones. The Expert Series will be recorded and placed on demand, so please let your colleagues know how much you enjoyed the presentation today. To get everyone a little familiar with the chat, where's everyone tuning in from today? Got Philly, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Florida, more Florida. Yeah, New Jersey is pretty rainy today and yesterday, and I don't think it's supposed to stop. Georgia. All right, awesome. Illinois. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Amanda, the Regional Product and Program Specialist, and Jamie, the Director of Environmental, Social, and Governance, here today to talk about how to minimize or eliminate exposures and risks when working with hazardous chemicals in laboratory environments.
Well, hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. My name is Jamie, and I am the, as they said, the Director of Environmental Social Governance here at Brady Corporation. But I also have, my background is environmental health and safety. I have almost 15 years of environmental health and safety experience, 5 of those directly managing lab safety and 7 years in consulting, working with various industries. My passions are industrial hygiene and safety. I'm a CIH CSP. Amanda's also here with us.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amanda. I'm on our regional operations team. So I work a lot with our product managers and our sales team and just help identify solutions that our customers are looking for. And if we don't have a solution, try and figure out how we can create a solution for your environments. So thanks for having us today.
Yeah. We're excited today to talk about labs. So we're going to discuss a brief overview of OSHA's lab standards, and then we're going to dive into identifying your safety needs and solutions. Then we'll discuss an industry best practice, 5S plus. Lastly, throughout the presentation, we're going to just briefly talk about some solutions that Brady offers. I'm just going to put this disclaimer out there. This is not a sales pitch to you guys. Honestly, this is what I've used in the labs, both here at Brady and in the other labs that I've worked in my career. So let's jump in to the OSHA standard. The whole reason that we are here is we want to keep our employees safe while working in a lab. As I'm sure you're all aware of, hold on, I'm trying to minimize, there we go. As I'm sure you're all aware, lab settings are such a unique setting. They're very different from manufacturing. OSHA recognizes this as well and developed a special standard just for labs, the 29 CFR 1910-1450. To start with, you'll need to identify a chemical hygiene officer, also known as a CHO. Your CHO needs to have relevant lab experience. They're going to be responsible for putting together your chemical hygiene plan and reviewing it on an annual basis. Your CHO may not be your EHS person. Here at Brady, I am not the CHO. One of our lab managers is the CHO. And when I was in an EHS capacity here, I worked very closely with them. You'll also need to identify needs to safely handle your hazardous chemicals, which may include glove boxes, hoods, eye wash stations, specialized fire extinguishers, etc. And then you'll need to train all of your lab employees on how to handle these chemicals safely. I want to take a moment, just a little bit, to talk about that chemical hygiene plan, because this is your team's go-to chemical safe handling manual. It's not something that just sits on a shelf. You dust it off once a year to do an annual review, and then you put it back on the shelf. It should be a living document that everyone in the lab can go to that will tell them how to protect themselves when working with chemicals, what to do if they're exposed to a chemical, how to store the chemicals, etc. It's going to be that guide for your employees on how and when to use PPE, engineering controls. It's going to tell them which materials require a controlled environment. It's going to guide your employees on how to bring in new chemicals. But before you can have a lab that is safe for, before you can have a lab that is safe for your employees, we need to identify our safety needs on all areas of the lab process: procurement, storage, waste, test room, in-process lab. A lot of the time, it's easy to focus on one part of the lab process and not as much on the others. But in reality, each process needs that same level of due diligence and identifying and addressing those safety needs. Today, we're going to go through each of these processes thoroughly, and maybe we'll identify something you hadn't thought of or was stumping you. Feel free, if there's something that's been stumping you as we talk through things, to write it down, and we'll answer questions at the end, and maybe we have some additional insight or solutions for you. The ideal lab for identifying safety needs is a lab that is custom built with safety in mind, where we've designed homes for our spill kits, our benchtop printers and labels, where we've made room for our signage. While this is a lovely thought, honestly, it's not most of our realities, including mine here at Brady. So I'm going to focus on existing labs. Oh, guys, you didn't even tell me that I'm not advancing the slides. I see a different screen than you guys. I'm sorry. Let's see if we can fix this. All right. Do you see procurement safety needs?
Yes.
Thank you. Everybody else, are you awake out there? Can you put something in a chat? Let me know that you're still with me here. I don't want to have bored you with the same intro slide. Thank you, Rhonda. Okay, my apologies, y'all. Sorry, I'm also grew up in the South, so you hear me say y'all a lot. There we go. Let's start talking about our procurement safety needs now that we're all halfway through the presentation. My apologies. So this is one of our most critical phases. Our CHO and designees, maybe that includes EHS, is going to oversee and monitor the ordering, use, storage, and disposal of your chemicals. Prior to ordering chemicals, it should go through an approval process. You want to have control for the chemicals coming into your lab, and it starts before that chemical even gets on site. One of the worst things is to have an extremely hazardous chemical show up on site without you knowing or preparing for this. So before approving, you're going to want to review that safety data sheet to make sure your lab is properly set up for that chemical. Okay, apparently my button to advance didn't work very well. Let's try this over here. There we go. Okay, so let's start with talking about, let's talk a little bit about what you want to really pay attention to when you're looking at an SDS. SDS, has anybody here looked at an SDS? Raise your hand in the chat, something. People out there awake? Nobody's awake. That's okay. I'm going to keep going. SDSs are really long, wordy documents. And sometimes if you're like me, you have a lot of chemicals to approve. While all of the information is important, of course, here are some critical things to look at before bringing a chemical on site. Section 2, your hazard identification. What are the hazards? Is this a carcinogen, a sensitizer, a reproductive toxin? How hazardous is this chemical? Section 4, first aid measures. What care is needed if an employee is exposed to this chemical? Is it different than our standard protocol? Will it require special training? Will it require us to add anything to our first aid kits? As I said, I have many years of working in labs, and some of my time was spent at a pharmaceutical company. When I worked in pharmaceuticals, we needed to have special antidotes on site for employee exposures. That was something unique we had in our first aid kits. Section 6, accidental release measures. What do I need to clean this up? Do I have the appropriate type and quantity of spill absorbent material?
Just as a reminder for everyone, Brady, I'm sure everybody knows us as a labeling company. We also have spill kits specifically for different environments, obviously including the lab environment. But we have small spill kits, large spill kits, portable ones, anything you need for spill control.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah.
Section 7, handling and storage. Where do I need to store this? Does it need refrigeration? A freezer? Do I have one? Can it not be stored with flammables? Does it need to be kept away from light? Section 8, exposure controls PPE. Does it have an exposure limit? Do I need to consider conducting industrial hygiene employee exposure monitoring? What PPE is required? Do I have that? Does it require a glove that I don't already have stocked? Does it require respirator usage? Are my employees trained to wear a respirator? Section 10, stability and chemical properties. Does it have a shelf life that I need to be aware of? Is it stable? Does it have a pH below 2 or above 12? That's going to be an issue when I need to dispose of it.
The other thing I do want to just bring up quick before we move on is overall here at Brady, we really pride ourselves on being safety consultants. So with that, we do have resources. It's on our website, but also if you work with your Thomas scientific partner, they can also access some of the public resources we have specifically for this pertaining to safety data sheets, just because there are a lot of sections and a lot of specifications that you want to make sure you're super familiar with. And I don't think anybody will have every one of these things memorized. So obviously having a like a PDF or some kind of written reminder is helpful. And we also can provide that for free.
Thanks, Amanda. I definitely use it in my role. Okay. You've brought the chemical on site. Now we have to make sure it's labeled correctly. First of all, the lab standard states that labeling on incoming containers of hazardous chemicals cannot be removed or defaced. Your incoming chemicals should come with a GHS label on them. You'll want to ensure that you are not removing them or defacing them. Here at Brady, we add a label with a QR code for chemical tracking purposes to our incoming chemicals. And we have to make sure that we're not covering up the GHS label with our internal labels. Also, sometimes there's a little dribble of a chemical that runs down the label after we use that chemical. If that's the case, we have to make sure we replace the label on the outside of the container if it ruins the GHS label on the outside. Regarding your secondary container labeling, the lab standard is a little bit more flexible than the HazCom program, which may be applicable to other areas of your facility. Lab standards allow labs to be flexible in how they are labeling, as long as employees are trained regarding the physical and health hazards of the chemicals in their work areas, the measures employees can take to protect themselves, and the employer's chemical hygiene program or plan. In labs that I've managed, we've developed a consistent system to label chemicals that identifies the name or experimental name, hazards, and the owner of the chemicals. Of course, we utilize the Brady printers and specialized labels to label our containers.
So with that being said, Jamie, you mentioned we have to, if somebody's pouring something from a primary into a secondary container, that secondary container 9 times out of 10 needs to be labeled. We have portable and benchtop printers that can allow you to create labels on demand. So say you have a space where you're always transferring chemicals into secondary containers. It's super easy to have a small portable printer, or like I said, a bigger benchtop printer, depending on how big the containers are and how often these labels need to be printed. Just right there in that same station, just so you know your employees are printing out those secondary container labels when they need to.
Okay. We've brought the chemical on site. Let's talk about how we're going to safely store it. Once again, you reviewed the SDS and you made sure you have proper storage available for that chemical before bringing it on site. We also want to make sure to ensure that our primary and secondary containers are unbreakable with those labels facing outwards. As I mentioned here at Brady, we use QR codes to help us manage our inventory, both what we have on site and where it's being stored. With that, we're able to review our inventory regularly to manage the quantity, the expiration dates, and risks for any chemical containment. We mark storage areas clearly using both safety signs and floor markings to communicate to our teams what chemicals are stored where. We want to ensure everyone knows that this cabinet holds flammables, or this refrigerator is for chemicals only. Don't put your lunch in there. Brady does offer floor markings and safety signs. Again, the purpose of this isn't a sales pitch, so I'm not going to chat a whole lot more about that, but if you have questions, please feel free to ask, or reach out to your Thomas Scientific rep. Lastly, we want to make sure we have absorbent kits on hand nearby where the chemicals are stored for any unexpected spills. We've already chatted a little bit about those absorbent kits, so I'm not going to dwell on that again. All right, you've brought the chemical on site, you've stored it appropriately, you've used it, and now you're ready to get rid of it. What are the safety and maybe a few of the regulatory needs in that waste disposal? Up until now, we've chatted more about the OSHA lab standard regulations. However, as you guys know, EPA regulates your hazardous waste and requires you to have at a minimum a central location. But if you're like my lab, you probably also have a few satellite locations and some lab pack waste as well. You'll want these areas to be well marked and labeled with the proper labels facing outward. You'll want to make sure that your central location is easily inspectable and that you're able to track your waste to ensure it isn't staying on site longer than legally allowed. You'll want to create a program that aims to ensure that no harm to people or the environment from disposal of waste lab chemicals. Again, we want to keep those absorbent kits on hand nearby for any of those unexpected spills. As with any hazardous chemicals, when it comes to waste, you want it to be a process that is easy to follow to minimize the risk to your employees and to the environment. Some fun facts to wake you up. I'm sure this is really gonna wake everybody up. Managing and minimizing waste not only makes sense for the environment, but it also makes good business sense. Waste accounts for 95% of all costs in a non-lean environment. 78 million baby boomers are expected to retire over the next 10 to 15 years. So visuals help those less experienced employees learn the job quickly and effectively. When an employee is starting a new job, onboarding training can feel like drinking from a fire hose. Visuals are going to help your employees know where to put each waste stream. 75% of knowledge is gained through visuals, 13% through hearing, and 12% through smell, touch, and taste. Although I do not recommend tasting the hazardous waste. Anybody out there? Okay, I'll keep going. Lean environments can lead up to a 40% increase in productivity. As mentioned before, we're going to talk about 5S plus, a lean tool, in just a little bit. All right, our last overview, what we're looking here. Let's chat about your actual test room and lab safety needs. We want to create a safer, more efficient workplace through visuals by communicating through our Lean 5S resources. Don't worry, we're almost there. We want to provide employees with appropriate PPE, and we want our employees to know when to wear the PPE and how to find the PPE. And we want to ensure that our tests are effective and readable. And we want to make sure that our labels are able to go where our equipment goes. Is it going in a cryogenic? Is it going in a harsh environment? What's our workflow look like? And what do we need to make sure that it's working for our employees? All right.
Speaking. Yeah, well.
Hi, if you wouldn't mind putting your thing on mute, that'd be great. Because we're getting to what everybody's looking for. 5S plus safety. We've talked about this a little bit. I've led up to it. I'm sure you're super excited. This is like the highlight of the presentation. Hold on. My computer wants to reboot. Let's hit the snooze on that one, but not on this presentation. So who here uses 5S or has heard of 5S? Raise your hand in the chat if you've heard of it, if you use it, if you love it. I'm going to be honest, when I first learned about this at the very beginning of my career 15 years ago, I loved it so much I tried to take it home with me and implement it at home. I have children now, so now that doesn't quite work, but it worked for a little bit. So 5S, sort. We eliminate those non-essential items by going through all the tools and materials in your facility and discarding unused items. Shine, get that workplace clean. We want to maintain its appearance and use preventative measures to keep it clean. 3, set in order. Focus on organizing your equipment, establishing safety measures, and creating procedures, product quality standards, and effective inventory and material handling. Standardize. Create best practices to make the improved workplace a standard. Sustain. Maintain that momentum. Ensure employees know the importance of workplace organization and strive to continuous improvement. And then the 6S, or the plus safety. Make the workplace safer by looking for any potential hazards and resolving them. We do this in our facility and our labs here. And what that looks like is we're continually looking at improving it. We have tape on benches to say, this is where the scale goes. This is a workspace. This is where chemicals are stored. We do an annual, we're always continually looking on ways to shine. And how we do that is we do it through actually monthly inspections or monthly audits of just walking through the area and looking at them. We also are looking at safety. Are there hoses on the ground? Are there chemicals being stored in places that could easily tip? Is there anything being stored on top of our chemical cabinets that we need to take care of? And then on an annual basis, we're doing a huge lab clean out where we're looking to make sure that we don't have old chemicals sitting around. We don't have old supplies, old labels, that we can pitch and we can get rid of and move out of our space. That is the end of our presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
So while everyone is typing their questions in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and steal the screen for a moment. I just wanted to take a quick moment to show you all that there is a promotion running. You can find that in the kiosk. There we go, a little slow today. There's a promotion. In here, you could also take a survey. There is literature, web links, as well as videos. So be sure to hang around the environment after the talk and explore all of the on-demand talks, which are located here. And this talk will be on demand later today or tomorrow morning. So be sure to bring your customers and coworkers in that will benefit from these talks. And I'll hand it back to you guys.
Thanks. All right, there's a couple questions right off the bat, so thank you. First question is, do you have samples? Yes, we have samples of anything and everything you need. I'm going to actually roll into answering the second question kind of at the same time. What solutions do you recommend for cryogenic environments? We offer specific labels for specific environments. So we have cryo-specific labels. Oh my gosh, this is a mouthful for a Thursday afternoon. We have materials that survive in liquid nitrogen and or ultra low temperature freezers, specifically when we're talking about cryo. They can be applied both at, like on a tube, both at room temperature or even if it's already frozen. And then that specific label material I'm talking about, it can withstand, like I said, liquid or vapor phases, nitrogen freezers, thaw cycles. Oh my gosh, all these words. And then also chemicals and whatnot. The other material I like to mention for labs specifically is we do have a water dissolvable material. So if you need to label something and then rinse it off or wash it off in hot water, or obviously through the wash process, it will dissolve, and then you can use that container for something else whenever you need to use it. So the container isn't completely ruined because of a label on it from something else. Another question in here, can you tell me a little more about the QR code process? So like Jamie mentioned, we do have the ability to generate and print QR codes from our printers. We also sell scanners that can read those QR codes that we print out, or barcodes, whatever kind of barcode is being used. A lot of things are going to QR these days, which is great, but we offer the scanners that also will read that information. And then if you have it connected, we can, it will fill in spreadsheets or an Excel form, whatever you need that information, wherever you need that information to fill in. Just by scanning, it will automatically fill the information in. And for any of those offerings, samples, material suggestions, or even like what kind of scanners we offer, you can definitely work with your Thomas Sci expert that you're connected with. We have Brady territory managers throughout the country that partner with Thomas Scientific reps. So they're very closely intertwine, work together. Like I said, we have them across the country, just like Thomas Scientific does. So it's kind of nice that everybody kind of, it's a more personal connection that your sales reps have. And the great thing about working with Thomas Scientific rep is they can get the experts out on site as well to help walk through this facility and possibly see where you could become more lean or more safe in your environment. What other questions do we have? Jamie, this might be a good one for you. What do you want to ask a customer when you approach them on their safety environment?
I think you want to ask, oh gosh, I'm trying to think, guys, what the best thing to ask. There's so many things. I think the first question is, how are they doing? What is their struggle? What's their pinch point? So that we can work together, develop a solution for that. I don't know any safety person that doesn't have a pinch point or a struggle, whatever that may be for us. I mean, I can be honest, like we're a label company and sometimes we struggle with labeling. You know, we have so many different chemicals and so many different chemists that are working on different things that we used to struggle with that. And so and part of that was, okay, you know, we have all the printers, but we needed to get them out into the labs more and available. So those were some things that we did. So I think that's really the first question to ask is, what are you struggling with? What's giving you your headache? What causes you to like go home and be like, oh, this sucks? That's the question that I would ask.
And I think too, Jamie, what you said is, for us specifically, we were bad at labeling, and it's because those materials and those printers weren't readily available where they needed to use them.
Yep.
So I mentioned earlier, spill kits, that sort of thing, labels, printers, everything like that. You just need to make sure it's readily available. Because I do the same thing at home or in my job here. If it's not within arm's reach or within a couple of steps, I'm likely gonna do the job without, if it makes it quicker or easier, whether it be right. So just making sure you have the supplies that your lab, the people in your lab need to do the job safely. And honestly, in the end, more quickly, because if something happens, something gets spilled, and I have to run across to 3 different rooms away or down the hallway or up or down a flight of stairs, and I come back, that spill can be a lot bigger and be hazardous, and now nobody's watching. Like, I know it's spilled, but there's no way I can indicate to somebody else who might walk into that room what was spilled, and it can be hazardous to more than just the 1 or 2 people that saw what happened. So again, keeping things close and convenient for your lab employees is important. And I kind of covered some of the solutions that we offer for a safe workplace. Obviously, we offer printers, we offer spill control. I don't think a ton of this happens in the lab environment, but floor marking. So if you need to signify where certain things go, even if you need to signify, hey, this is a designated spot for a spill kit. And if visually somebody walks past and sees there's no spill kit in that spot, where is it? B, did somebody use it? And C, do I have to reorder it to make sure, again, it's there as a convenience for my employees?
I think that is all the questions. Oh, we have one more question.
Yeah, I think definitely. Sorry, the question, I was reading it. The question, can you forward a roster of our domestic sales reps? I can definitely work with our Thomas Scientific reps just to make sure everybody has our Brady roster. And it'll include phone numbers, names, obviously phone numbers and emails. So you can help get you connected with our Brady salespeople. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys so much. I hope you really enjoyed that long intro.
Yes, thank you, everyone, and be sure to check out everything else in the Thomas Center. Have a great rest of your day.